Okay, off you go. Somebody who sleeps under his bed in the sukkah, he is not yoked because he's not considered himself in the sukkah, he's considered under the bed. Omar Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Noegim hayinu kama. We had the minhag. Shehayinu yeshenim tachas hameta. We used to sleep under the bed. If Neaz came in front of the chachamim, footnote, which is he doesn't say clearly, he's obviously proving that it's mutter and you yoke to your because if it wouldn't be yoke to your then the chachamim would have told them don't sleep under the bed. So we had the minhag, we slept under the bed if Neaz came in front of the chachamim, and he didn't say anything to us, and the fact that he didn't say anything to us is a proof that it is okay to sleep under the bed in sukkah. Amar Reb Shimon. So now Reb Shimon is going to bring a proof to Tanakama that somebody who sleeps under the bed in the sukkah is not yoked. Why? He says a story like this. Ma'aser b'Tovi, Avdei Shalom Gamliel. So there was a story, Ma'aser b'Tovi, Avdei Shalom Gamliel, with Tovi, the servant. Tovi's the name, and Avdei Shalom Gamliel, who was the servant of Gamliel, comma. So what was going on is he was sleeping under the bed. Now, Va'amalem Gamliel is a Canaan. Reb Gamliel turned around to the Zakanim when he saw his servant Tovi, and now in quotes, this is what Reb Gamliel said to the Zakanim. Re'isem, have you seen Tovi Abdi, Tovi my servant? Shahur Tamad Chacham. He's a learned person, comma, v'yodea, and he knows Sha'avodim P'torim min Sukkah. He knows that Avodim are potim from Sukkah, lefikach. Therefore, this is still part of him speaking. Close. That's the end of what Gamliel said. So Gamliel said to the Zakanim, can you see my servant Tovi? He's sleeping under the sukkah. Why is he sleeping under the bed in the sukkah? Because he knows that Avodim are potim from the sukkah. Now, what was he trying? That's a proof. On the Fidarakenu. Yeah. So the Fidarakenu. Now this is now we go back to Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon's speaking now. Reb Shimon says about what Gamliel said to the Zakanim. He finished off by saying, "Lefidarakenu lemadnu." And by the way, Lefidarakenu is a way of saying, by the way, we have learned. The only reason why an Eved who sleeps on the sukkah is good to go is because he's pot from sukkah. However, anybody who's mukhlayv in sukkah is not okay to sleep under bed in the sukkah. So yeah, we've got the Tanakama who said lo yotza. Then we've got Yehuda who said a story from the fact that we used to sleep under the bed in front of the chachamim and they didn't say anything to us is a proof that you are Yotza. And then Reb Shimon says over a story about Reb Gamliel who said about his servant Tovi that he slept on the sukkah and he said about him, look, he's a Tam Chacham and he knows that he's part of the sukkah and that's why he's sleeping under the bed, which was a proof. And by the way, we have learned so footnote on Avodim P'torim min Sukkah, the reason why Eved is part from sukkah is because we know now of Gzeir Shava that Avodim are hookash to women, and women are part of the sukkah because it's a mitzvah say shazman grama. Yeah, sukkah is a mitzvah say shazman grama, and therefore noshim are potter, and avodim are the same as noshim. That is the Mishnah.
Is there a tzad that could be when he had his story was a cotton or
no Gemayina. He was talking about himself, like he himself was sleeping under the bed. So that's the Mishnah, the two shits of the Mishnah. Now, just as a footnote before we start the Gemara, that someone who sleeps under the bed in the sukkah that is not yokta is not just simply because there's a covering over his head, and a covering over his head is blocking him from the skach. A covering by itself won't be a problem. The problem of sleeping under the bed in the sukkah is that it's considered its own enclosure, its own oil, exactly. It's considered its own oil, and that's why he's not considered in the sukkah, he's considered in his own oil. And to be considered oil of its own, it has to be at least 10 tefachim high.
So it's a four-post, it's like a rubber bed?
It's a four-posted bed, it's a bed with 4 posts, like a regular bed is.
And the thing on top of it?
And the bed on top of it, and it has to have 10 tefachim underneath it. Now the Gemara took on, once we've got that hakdama that it has to be an oil, which is 10 tefachim high, the Gemara took on a regular bed is not generally got 10 tefachim underneath it.
So then it's okay to sleep underneath it?
Exactly. So
then why top? We've got a shade on top.
We've got a shade on Tani and on Tanakama. Why does Tanakama have a problem with sleeping under the bed? So that's the Gemara now.
Well, the answer for Tanakama was, and what's that?
And that's it. That's that.
Well, by the way, are we doing Rashi?
No. Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, V'haleka asara. Says the Gemara, V'haleka asara question mark. There's no 10 tefachim under the bed, and the reason why the Gemara takes on that there's no 10 is because generally the regular bed doesn't have 10 tefachim underneath it. And therefore, for the Gemara, if it doesn't have 10 tefachim, like we said just now, then there's no problem with sleeping under the bed. Because the whole problem with sleeping under the bed is only if it's an enclosure by itself, an oil of its own. And this is not considered an oil of its own because it doesn't have 10 tefachim underneath it. Tirugma Shmuel. So Shmuel, Tirugma actually means he translated it, but that's the literal translation. Tirugma Shmuel, he translated it. It really means he explained our Mishnah to be talking about the Mita Asara full stop, a 10 tefachim high bed. And therefore the problem with sleeping under this bed is that it's now an enclosure of its own because it's 10 tefachim high, and somebody who sleeps under this bed is considered sleeping under a bed in its own enclosure, not in the sukkah. However, anything which is less than 10 tefachim high would be absolutely fine to sleep under this bed. Yeah, all good? Amazing. So we're moving on now. Just as a introduction to the next Gemara, this Gemara is not really to do with our Mishnah, but from all the backwards forwarding till you get to Chaf Aleph on base, we're going to get back to a question in our Mishnah, and that way that's why this comes in here, but really it's not connected to the actual Mishnah we've learned so far. Now, there's a halakha of tumah. That means if you've got a mace, a kazayas of a mace, underneath a roof, then any kelim under that same roof become tomei. Now, for that place to be considered an oil, this is a different kind of oil than we just learned. Oil of a person has to be 10 tefachim high. Oil for tumah, which is that one thing, a keli under the same roof as tumah, for it to become tomei, it has to have a tefach wide, tefach by a tefach, and a height of a tefach. And that way, anything which is under that same enclosure, in that same roof, will become now tomei. Tanan. So this is quoting a Mishnah in Arlois. Tanan Hossa. So the Mishnah there is discussing this halacha that to have tumah on kelim it has to be tefach or tefach brum tefach. Now says the Mishnah, which kind of places will be considered a place that is going to cause tumah from the mace onto any kelim which are under that roof? Echad choy. Echad means weather. Choy shecharuhu mayim. Choy is a hole. Shecharuhu mayim, that water duct. So an example of that would be, Rashi explains that sometimes you've got a river and you've got the bed which is higher, the river side which is higher than the river, and as the river flows it causes the sides underneath the river bed to sort of go away, and now you'll end up underneath the river bed with a tefach al tefach barum tefach. There you've got a tefach by a tefach, the height of a tefach, and because you've got that underneath it, then any tumah over there will go over to any of the kelim which are under that same roof. So echad choy, whether a hole, shecharuhu mayim, which water made that hole. It wasn't made by a person, it was made by the water flowing down the river. Oy, eroded by the water, right. Oy shrotzim, or you've got certain animals which dig holes, like weasels and rabbits, who dig holes. They dug a hole of a tefach by a tefach, one tefach. Oy shachlosoi milechas. Sometimes you have bad earth that it just falls away. So you'll have good earth sometimes on top, and then underneath it is bad. Yeah, a sinkhole, but there's a roof on top of it. So you've got underneath it a space of tefach by tefach, which happens because of the nature of the earth itself.
What's melachas? What's the translation?
Melachas is literally it's salty mud which just sort of falls away, it ruins itself. Yeah, it leaves a space of a tefach room tefach.
Okay.
Yeah, v'chein madbei chavonim. So a madbei chavonim is a pile of stones. You have 1, 2, and then you do that way. 1, 2, 1, 2. So madbei chavonim is a pile of stones made 2 stones this way, 2 stones the other way. And sometimes, because of the way they're set out, then you'll end up having in between the 2 stones at the bottom, you've got the top to cover it as a roof. And then in between the 2 bottom ones, you've got a tefach, room tefach somewhere in between this pile of stones. V'chein soil shalkuris. Soil shalkuris is a pile of beams. Also, again, the way it's piled up, you can sometimes end up in between one level and the other level of a space of a tefach by a tefach.
What's the... We said before, B'chei Midwach a pile of stones, and now here's social Perek.
It's also the same kind of idea.
So where's pile? Which word is it?
It's just 2 kinds of, Madbei is the way, it's a pile which is set up in a way that it's, all different directions. And a soya shalker is also a kind of pile of stones. It's made with long beams. Then all these are mahel al hatumah. They are mahel, means they are oil over the tumah, and they will cause tumah to go from one to the other. Now the chiddush of all of these are, well, the first few weren't made by anybody, they happened themselves. Either the water did it, or animals, or the way. Now the last two, a person did make them because he put the pile of stones and he put the pile of beams. The idea of those two, why it's not considered a regular oil, is because he didn't intentionally make this oil. Yeah, he just wanted to make a pile of stones and he ended up that there was a space there. He didn't want a space of a tefach. So the last two, Madbech Avonim and Sukkah Perek, those two, he didn't make intentionally. He made them just as a pile of stones and a pile of beams, and it ended up that in between the pile, there ended up being a tefach, a room tefach.
Why does it make a difference whether he intended?
We'll see in a minute. Rabbi Yehuda's Chola. Nahil Alatum, all these are Tanakama hold in this Mishnah that they all are cause Tumah to go from any mace that's under there to any Kodesh. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol oil, every oil, she'einoi osui b'dei adam, that's not made by a person, eino oil. Now literally, from Rabbi Yehuda's words, it would sound like that has to be made by a person, but we know from Madbech Avonim and Sukkah Perek, it's good to put this as a footnote. Kol oil she'ein osui b'dei adam, eino oil, and to put in a footnote, even if it is made b'dei adam, but not intentionally to be there as a space of tefach, room tefach, that's also got the chisaron, it's also got the problem that's not called, according to Yehuda, exactly, according to Yehuda, it's got a problem that's not called oil asui b'dei adam, and it will not cause tumah to go over. So all these cases Yehuda's oil upon, either because they're not made by a person, or even when it's made by a person, but not intentionally made by this person to be this space of tefach, then it will be a problem. Let's just finish off. My time.
So even if it's made by human but not on purpose, then it's a problem or not a problem?
Well, it's machlokes Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. Tanakama holds it is a good oil and it will make tumah, and Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's not an oil which is considered made by a person, and therefore the tumah will not go over. Let's just finish off. My time at Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Yehuda? You've got here tefach al tefach room tefach. What should be the problem? Yalif, he learns out. Yalif, he learns out oil the mishkan. So oil is exir shava. When two psukim have the same word, we learn out halachas from one pasuk to the other. So it says oil in one pasuk and it says oil in another pasuk. The first pasuk that says oil in is the mishkan. By the mishkan, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu spread out the oil on top of the mishkan. And in this our pasuk of Tumah, it says Adam kiyomus ba'oil. Kalabala oil, which is talking about Tumas oil. That's where we learn out the parasha, the halacha of Tumah in the oil. So now Yalif, he learns out oil mimishkan. Now this is the way he learns it out. So Kama. Ksiv hacha, it says in our pasuk in the parasha of Tumas oil, Zois HaTorah, this is the parasha, Adam Kiyamus Ba'oil, a person who dies in the oil. And that's the parasha carries on explaining that anything with Kalabala oil, that's parasha pasuk in Chukas, anything which comes in the pasuk. So that's the quote, Zois HaTorah, Adam Kiyamus Ba'oil, end quote. That's the end of the pasuk, and that's pasuk number 1, which says the word oil in it. Pasuk number 2, Ksiv Hassam, quote, Vayifrais es ha'oil, he spread out the oil ala Mishkan. It's talking about Moshe Rabbeinu. When he finally set up the Mishkan, he spread out by Yifrais, he spread out the oil, which is the top urea, al ha-Mishkan, on top of the Mishkan. End quote, that's the end of the pasuk. Ma lahalom b'dei, and just like who made the second oil, when it says that Yifrais is oil, it was made by a person, Moshe Rabbeinu, afkan b'dei adam, full stop. So too, by Zois HaTorah Adam Kiyomus Ba'oil, that has to be the kind of oil made by a person. That's where Rabbi Yehuda learns out that has to be man-made, and he also learns out that has to be made, intentionally made, because Moshe Rabbeinu did both of those. He was first
Intentionally made to be like Abba.
no, intentionally made to be an oil, to be a cover over. So Moshe Rabbeinu intentionally made this oil, so from there we learn that to be considered the oil, we learn out oil, Mimishkan, we learn out Xer Shava, oil, from the Mishkan, that it has to be man-made, intentionally made oil. I think we'll leave it here.